We are here to bring you everything and anything surrounding Porsche. I'm Mike.
I'm Aaron.
And this is P-Car Talk.
I think they should have done the DPI car, internationally, and they are.
Yeah.
So there is going to be a place for that. It's just it took all of this stuff for them to realize that they were going to have some sort of a fallback to the hypercar. I mean, it's great in theory, and I think it's good for manufacturers because it looks more like a car.
Yeah. It's sexier, right?
Yeah. The thing is like if you're Toyota or you're Porsche, or you're Audi, or name any manufacturer that raced in Le Mans the last couple of years, they're learning a lot about technology, but that falls into one aspect of it. But do they necessarily sell any more cars?
Yeah,
maybe
exactly.
A little bit. I mean, if you're winning Le Mans, you get to have a poster and whatnot, and people see that.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, when we were doing GT1 races in Le Mans, where it was like a McLaren that looked like a McLaren, the Porsche GT1 car that for the first half looked like a 993-ish, and then a 996. Those are cars that we still have posters of at our houses and garages and stuff like that.
Dream race cars where there's like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, there's something about, to me, a car that looks like a car, and you'll get open wheel guys that don't necessarily think the same way, but a lot of people that are in this industry don't like prototypes, and they don't like the open wheel cars only because they're not a car.
Just not relatable.
Yeah, it's
I can appreciate that. I mean, I like them, but I like them less than I like the GTD cars or GTLM cars.
Yeah.
Like, I do like them less. I like them for what they are, and because I understand what they are. But I think when the whole field kind of looks the same, I kind of, minus the livery that they put on it, it's kind of like,
replace it with a different livery, and it's the same car.
Yeah, but I mean, it's going to be the weird part is like you'll have GTLM, you'll have your hypercar, you'll have your LMP2. They'll still be there. So it's a little bit weird and skewed because your P2 car is going to kind of sort of look.
I was going to say, I know where you're going with that, like redundancy, right? Like there's a lot of redundancy probably looking at like those cars.
I hate to say this because they would never do this for a restructure. It would be cool if like they had the GT3 car as the GTAM for at Le Mans, your GTLM car as your pro class, your LMP2, and then have your hypercar. The GT3 platform, I mean, it's such a good platform. The cars are inexpensive. I mean, it was like my bread and butter for years.
Yeah.
They're good cars. They get a lot of manufacturer involvement. They're not extensively hard or expensive to run. And like there's guys that could feasibly go to Le Mans that couldn't with that type of car.
Yeah,
that's cool.
And I know they got the Michelin Cup that goes there that for the Le Mans weekend, but it's just not the same. I think it would grow in that aspect if they were GT3 cars, GTLM cars, and if a GTLM guy is an amateur and he wants to race in GTLM, it's it wasn't always like this where they had a silver and a bronze and a gold and a platinum type of thing.
That's
you
true.
could get your ass whooped if you're platinum or if you're bronze.
That's true. Yeah, it didn't matter.
So,
you're right.
And not to mention, I mean, it always comes down to strategy and the car that can finish at the end. And there's not so much of that anymore because the cars are so good. But if a car can do 24 hours at Daytona or 12 hours at Sebring, it can do 24 hours at Le Mans.
I worry about it from just a fan perspective that there might be not as much manufacturers participation as they might anticipate just because it's expensive to run.
Yeah.
And for the exact reasons you said earlier, what's the benefit for them to do that? Like from a selling standpoint,
I mean,
maybe sell a couple really rare homologated cars out of it.
I mean, it's difficult because there's 10% of the people that are at the track that are truly super fans, and they really know like, oh yeah, that's the Yost Mazda, or that's the Wayne Taylor's Cadillac or something like that.
Exactly.
Like, nobody. I mean,
you're right. Most people.
It's very few and far in between of the people that are, drinking and having fun and camping that know the difference between those cars. But if you see a GT3R and then you see a Lamborghini, and then you see a Ferrari.
Exactly.
Like, they know that, and they have brand loyalty to that as well.
You're right.
And a Cadillac DPI has no Cadillac in it. You know, they're great race cars.
Yeah.
And there's a place for them for sure.
But just like the people that are like, yeah, I know exactly. Like,
Yeah.
there's not going to be a campfire talk about that where they're like, I'll beat your ass if you say that again about that Cadillac, you know?
Yeah. And I think, like, especially like your listeners, I'm sure, really dedicated to, you know, a manufacturer, or they really wouldn't be listening to this.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
So, I think that's a good way of building a brand where you're doing a lot of, you know, GT3, or just, let's say, just GT cars.
Yeah.
Not GT3 or GT Le Mans, but just cars that look like cars.
Exactly.
You know, and like case in point, our TCR car, it doesn't have an Audi motor in it. It doesn't have an Audi powertrain in it. It's basically all Golf R stuff. That car comes with a 2.5 liter 5-cylinder. This is all a brand identity, you know, racing class. Like, you see an Audi, like, shit, you guys are fans, and you didn't know that there was front wheel drive cars.
Yeah,
you know?
I didn't even know that. Yeah.
You know, so it's like
all-wheel drive.
It's a visual. It's a silhouette.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
you're right.
To whatever that car was. And have they sold cars because of that? I'm sure they have.
Of course.
I mean, they probably sold cars because the...
it looks cool with the box fenders on it, too. It looks tough. It looks tough.
Yeah, it looks like a little mini DTM car.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, like, DTM probably... Well, they're struggling now.
Yeah,
they are.
But, like, that's a car that looks like a car, too. But, you know, so maybe we're not right. Because they're struggling. It's an expensive class.
It's true.
You know, I felt like,
but I feel like DTM as a whole is up and down.
Yeah,
is up and down.
Yeah, it always is. But are we gonna address Formula E? Are we gonna talk about that at all?
Yeah, of course. Let's talk about it.
Because I feel like I almost like preemptively.
Everybody's going to it, man.
Yeah, I almost like. I didn't prep at all for this, really.
No,
because this is my conversation.
This is
but
the
in my
way it
head, I'm
should
like,
be.
man, I'm wondering if we're gonna talk about Formula E, because honestly, I think we're all going that direction.
I 100% agree with you.
Porsche's all in.
100% agree with you.
I mean, they could have went racing in Formula One, but they didn't.
Well, they pulled their stuff.
Yeah.
They were gonna sell their engines, and they pulled them.
You know, it's they're looking at 10 years from now.
Oh yeah.
And even in the TCR class that we raced in, they have an eTCR equivalent.
Okay.
So they're building cars. Hyundai has one, Honda has one, and it's a homologated powertrain, but it's kind of putting it out there that, you know, electric motors and that technology is going to be what we're going to be driving. It's what we're going to be racing.
Running, yeah.
So, you know, I wish somebody would come to me to go do like an eTCR or something, because the quicker that I get into it, the better I'll be.
True.
I mean, there's a lot to those cars.
Because you're starting to gain the experience earlier instead of later.
Yeah,
I mean, catch up.
I mean, I would love to go, you know, work in that Porsche Formula E program.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty killer.
You heard it.
Yeah.
He wants in.
Yeah.
So since we're on the topic, so we're already, you know, I'm pretty naive about it, and I'm sure there's a lot of listeners that are probably naive about the technology behind it. And we read obviously what we can consume.
Yeah.
So behind it, obviously, it's not a secret. They have a problem with longevity. That's why the races they've been running are the distance and the times that they've been running it in. Do you foresee more long term where they can maybe get somewhat close to the gas power where they're running and getting that energy life out of the batteries?
I think it'll be something where they change a battery, but the battery technology will be so much better that it'll be a more compact battery.
Okay. It's almost like a pit stop. Like
I was thinking
the car comes in, comes up, they pull the skateboard.
Yeah.
Essentially, like if you can think of it, the skateboard batteries out, new skateboard batteries in, good to go.
I was lucky enough to work on the Porsche RS Spiders.
Fuel pit stop.
Yeah,
right?
I mean we're doing fuel pit stops right now. What's the difference between changing a battery?
Good point.
So like I worked on the RS Spiders a bit, and
those are awesome.
They're pretty awesome. Everything was made to be quick, and you could pull the battery out of that car in less than 10 seconds.
That's awesome.
It was two quick fasteners, and it pulls out with a nice little Porsche leather handle.
Nice.
The thing just pops out, and you push a new battery in. So if you had a battery that failed, you would have it changed in 20 seconds.
Okay.
Just as quick as you could do the pit stop stuff. So yes, that technology's there. I mean, it's way there.
So it'll probably look more like that then.
It'll look like that.
So it'll look like a pit stop coming in. And it'll go to managing your battery power.
Correct. Just like you're managing
your fuel. Yeah. So essentially, just like we are using it, the electricity will be the fuel. Yeah. So they're going to treat it as a fuel type of pit stop, maybe.
I mean,
that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. I mean, you just got to look at it like it's a pit stop. I mean, it's not going to. I mean, I think it was silly what they did in the first couple of years where you swapped cars. That was kind of a bad look for Formula E.
Yeah.
I think, and that kind of put it in people not liking it. And obviously there's the two things. There was that, and then people getting used to the noise.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still something to say about the grunts.
To be fair, and a lot, and I'm sure you're the same way, a lot of race car people, one of them, it evokes a different kind of emotion. Yeah. That sound, when each car has its own unique sound. Absolutely. It's from its engine note, especially even in Formula One and even all the GT classes, where you're like, wow, that's a flat six. Yeah. Oh, wow, that's a V10. That's a.
When you're at like a Lime Rock and you're circled in a bowl basically of GT exhaust noises, it's a pretty awesome experience because you hear the Corvette go by and you know it's the Corvette.
Yep.
You hear the RSR and then you try to find like some earplugs.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you know the RSR's there, and then your turbocharged 4 GTs,
Yep. You're like, that's a turbo car.
Yeah.
You're like, the Ferrari, you're like, that's a turbo car.
Yeah. And you hear that big V8. Obviously, we haven't gone back to Lime Rock since, we have new Corvettes and no 4 GT, but
yeah,
I mean, it was a soundtrack, but the same, and that won't ever happen with Formula E.
Exactly.
And then
they make a noise, but they will all make a similar noise.
But we kind of come back to a brand loyalty and a brand recognition thing. This is a lot like LMP1. It's an experiment. They're learning about something. Back then, they were learning about hybrid systems, and right now they're learning about full electric systems.
Yeah.
So this is just a natural progression.
Yeah.
This is how a business really should be ran. I mean, they dominated.
Yeah. You got to beta it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but the chassis are all the same in Formula E. Okay, but your powertrain is open. You can use a spec engine or power unit, or you can build your own.
Yeah.
Your gearbox is open. So that's where they're learning this technology is that, the reduction in drag in the gearbox, that's big in an electric motor because then you gain efficiency of not having to use so much power. The battery technology, all this stuff is going to just get better when you got, Nissan racing against, Porsche racing against, Audi racing against.
Yeah, I agree.
And like Volkswagen's not, other than TCR, is not going to be doing any motorsports that has an internal combustion engine.
I saw them say that.
So it's I think guys that are doing IMSA are and kind of just all professional motorsports guys are a little bit more broad-minded about this than like your old school hot rodder,
maybe the HSR cars. Guy.
Yeah, which and I think even those guys. I mean, a lot of my customers that have some really cool vintage equipment will also be driving around in a Prius or a Tesla. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's
Do you think eventually that all trickle down where we'll go all E racing all across all boards? You don't think that'll ever happen?
I don't think that'll ever happen. I think maybe hybrid, but I don't think it'll be completely, electric motors. I just, I think there's a place in everybody's hearts for the noises and the smell of the fuel and stuff like that. And,
because then that obviously outside of him, so that would even trickle into NASCAR too, because then it's like, okay, well, is NASCAR going to go E? They make a wonderful sound note too when they're driving around the track. You're going to take that away where, can you imagine a silent Daytona where you have them all running around?
The cars.
Yeah.
That would be, I don't know, that would be so strange. I don't think that could ever happen.
And it's surprising that, I mean, so you bring up NASCAR and some of the best technology that's coming out of like motorsports is actually coming from NASCAR, even though like everybody kind of thinks it's a little bit, backwoods redneck. It's not even remotely that. Like they have much better
maybe a long time ago, but they've
I mean, just the technology
closed that gap a long time ago.
The simulation work that they do, the ways that they find efficiency in internal combustion motors and stuff like that is really huge. Even like compared to IndyCar, like the technology. If you're a budding engineer and you just came out of school and you're top notch and you want to like do the highest level of motorsports that you can. Obviously, there's Formula One, but a lot of guys do NASCAR because simulation is big in that.
You know, wind tunnel Mr. work. H. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad to hear you say that, being involved in it, that you don't ever think that'll happen. Obviously, it's just your opinion, but it's nice to hear somebody who's in it so hardcore that believes that we'll still I guess at worst is the best way to say it, go to hybrid. So we'll still get an engine note.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there'll still be,
because that would be a sad day, I think, and I think it's just an adjustment, but
I could never see NASCAR doing
it. No, never.
So
no.
I think we can always bet on that.
Yeah. But to be fair too with them, a lot of the stuff we always talk about how it translates to street stuff. So like as Porsche as a company, let's fast forward 2 or 3 decades where they don't even make a combustion car anymore for the road. Yeah. Does it make sense for them to run a combustion car in a race?
No.
Because you can't buy it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it doesn't make any sense.
So then it goes back to that, okay, well, it looks like a car, right? So then now they're going to run whatever they're running in the road. Yeah. So I think if you look at it reverse engineered that way, maybe there might be a day where Porsche, maybe they just won't race in that race anymore.
Well, I mean, you look at...
I could see that, just taking it all out together.
You look at one of the manufacturers that you would never expect to be really deep into the electric motor stuff, and that's Ford. Mm-hmm. And they're banking on this stuff that it's going to be like almost all electric.
Well, yeah, they've essentially they sold the farm essentially. They're like, we're done with all of our road cars. We want to go to an E.
Yeah. So they've got they've got their F-150, they've got their Mustang, and then it's going to be E cars.
Yeah.
But they still race in NHRA.
Yeah.
And they make a lot of noise.
That's true. That's true.
So I think there'll still be
facets of it. Yeah.
I mean, and the way that they're doing it
that's
too
a good point, I guess.
It's kind of a 50-50 thing. I think they'll. What the best thing that could possibly come of this is a battle between the internal combustion motor and the electric motor. And I've never really thought about it this way. This is kind of like the first time it popped in my head. Is that you're going to have guys that are still going to want the internal combustion motor, but they're always going to get this fight against the electric motor guys that, they're not efficient. So is that going to just drive up the efficiency of internal combustion engines?
It could.
I mean, that's one way of thinking about it. Force their hand
with the technology side of it. And
I mean, because you look like the Koenigsegg stuff, like they're doing like, timing, like the timing on these motors is like all electronically controlled.
Yeah.
They don't have like, timing belts and things like that. I mean, that's efficiency loss right there. It's just having a belt.
Exactly.
Every
doesn't need to turn anything anymore.
Which is nuts to think about gear, all that stuff. It just creates some sort of a heat, which creates some sort of an energy, which is some sort of a loss. So like in the grand scheme of things,
I broke a belt. What belt?
Yeah. So if you're
beltless engine,
if you got your computer running your valves and your piston going up and down, it's just on a motor. It just zip zip zip, open. You're
good to go.
You've taken a lot of that out of there.
You're right.
And I'm sure this is all stuff that we're talking about like in the normal world, but like in Formula One, I mean, they have rules that they can't do that type of stuff, but I mean, they have dual combustion chambers in the Mercedes motors. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're burning the fuel because they have to have a specific amount of fuel that they use during a race.
Yeah, exactly.
So like, there's a lot of
dual burn.
I mean, there's a lot, and that might be the best thing about it is maybe we get the internal combustion motor to where it's just sipping fuel and everyone's happy with it, and then we got our E guys and our
back. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, everybody's just kind of living together along with everything,
and just getting stronger.
Yeah, and it has all, and we have different rate. Maybe it's just adding. We have additional race classes.
Yeah. In the same time.
Yeah, at the same time with the combustion engine. So it actually could just be more.
Yeah.
Instead of less.
Change your battery out right next to a team that's putting fuel in the car.
Yeah.
And all balance performance in the same time.
That'd be great if it hopefully works out that way. That would be the best for everyone, right?
Yeah. I think that's what we'll be looking at, 10 years from now. I mean, it'll be a slow
at least while
movement.
we're still hanging around, right?
Yeah. I'll try not to get shocked or before then.
Zapped.
Trying to build my own motor.
Yeah, awesome.
And like kids' Power Wheels, so we got a GT3 Power Wheel.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's all juiced up.
Limited edition. You got it turned up?
Oh, it's a little bit, but I mean, it's funny because I got a 4-year-old and she.
You do PTS paint on it yet?
No.
Do you see there's guys doing that out there with some of their kids? Like they go get them and PTS, like they break them all down and then they take them and go get them painted and then they bring them back and reassemble them.
I wouldn't want to do that because my son hits it into every single solitary thing on the planet. He's
so you got to go Lee Kane. You got to safari it.
Exactly.
We thought about that actually. We thought that'd be kind of a neat thing. So like my daughter likes it, but my son he's under 2 and he just rams it into everything. And it's 2 speeds. It runs on like a 6-volt and then a 12-volt, and that's how it gains its speed with the 12-volt system. And he loves it. He drives it good. He slams into everything. He's looking around behind him when he should be looking forward. But I think I would never really want to go crazy souping it up because I've seen YouTube videos of the dads that do that. And it's a lot like the same, guy that would be at the soccer field and going,
"Oh, that guy.
Jimmy!"
Yeah, that guy.
Kick it out now. Yeah, I don't want turn down.
Exactly.
That's like my fear of becoming like a go-kart dad or something like that. Like I would be the worst go-kart dad on the planet. I mean, it might be
you
good.
broke too early.
I'd be screaming from the grandstands. All the other dads would be.
Your kids have no chance if you're the one doing the like telemetry. You're like, see right here. Yeah. You're taking this all wrong.
Yeah, Dad, I just want to go home.
I'm just having fun. They're like, you think this is fun?
This isn't fun. This is work.
Yeah, you're 10 seconds slower. Oh. This is a waste of my time. You're wasting your time. You're wasting my time.
You want to get one of these other dads over here?
Yeah,
I'll disown you.
Yeah. You want to just go have fun? Yeah, I'll go get your Barbie car. You go have fun with that.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, it does suck because my neighbor is actually an avid go-karter.
Yeah.
Which it obviously that wasn't planned.
Yeah.
But like right across the street, this guy's got like 7 go-karts. And I'm like, no. So my son will go over, my daughter will come over, they just sit in them.
Already looking at them. Like both the kids are like, these look fun. You're like, yeah, great.
My son will sit in that thing for like 20 minutes.
Really?
And just sit in it and just like turn the wheel. I'm like, oh boy.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would want to bring him down that. I mean, I think we talked about kind of the road to Indy thing and how much it costs, and it's kind of impossible unless you have
you have to have that like endless pockets essentially.
Even in go-karting.
Yeah.
Because
karting's ridiculously expensive.
Yeah, you're spending $120 for a good season in karting, and that's a bit much for. I mean, I feel like anybody for their kid to like play a sport. I mean, there's horses, and then there's racing, and those are about the 2 most expensive things you could do. And
exactly.
I'd say maybe you get them like a $9 basketball or something like that. That's what I laugh about, like friends that tell me about.
And at least you can maybe breed the horse if it's a champion horse. You can't even do that with a race car. It's just kind of like a hand-me-down, half the price that you paid for it to somebody else. So it's still eating up all the money.
Yeah, I mean, and they're disposable especially with the go-karts. Like you get guys that will bring like 3 chassis to a race, and then just like chassis number 2. Chassis. Oh, this isn't as good as the other one.
Exactly.
It's like, geez,
it's just got a little bit of wave in it. I don't like this one as much. It's like, good lord, it's nuts.
We did that with GT cars though too. That's something they might be surprised about. Like we would have cars that, in the later days when budgets were getting really crazy, we didn't do like torsional stiffness tests and stuff like that on the cars, but you would get one car, and especially at like, I won't say the names of the places, but
it's like steering wheel's cocked, but you're going straight. You're like, this is a problem.
there would be, you would get like 3 cars, and they could be very different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even with our TCR cars, like they're really close, but they're a little different. Yeah. For sure. Like just like we would buy a different chassis every year. Like
that still holds true, I think, even to nowadays, especially even a lot of race cars, and maybe not from a factory's perspective, like when they're making sure both of their cars are dialed in.
No, that's where I'm coming from.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so like 912 and 911 both run a little different.
Yeah, there could be that little bit of difference, you know, like
that one has a hitch and it's giddy up, and the other one
doesn't. It happens, and it really big time on the on like the open wheel cars, like when they're carbon chassis cars, like just, they really, really, really try to make sure that like they're all done to the same spec, the same temperature when they're curing the carbon and things like that. But like,
still different.
You might just get one that was just like the old adage, like a Monday motor versus a Friday motor. I mean, they're out there,
Yeah, it's true. I think that's actually pretty neat though, because that still is that added element of personality. For example, for a car personality. Because if they were all just blueprinted and they were all just perfect and they were all the same, then it would actually take away and just make it really just a computer or something at that point.
But it's funny, like I kind of came to this conclusion that like building a race car is a lot like baking a cake, right? Mm-hmm. Like I don't know how to do that at all. Yeah. I watch my wife.
But
do
the theory behind it.
And look, like you put like this much, of this ingredient, this much of this ingredient, this much, and like every car, like even if you have the same set of dampers on it, I mean, and you have the same spring, every one of those parts is a little bit different. Yeah. One granule of salt is making your recipe different. Good point. So like I could put.
And you could go deeper than that, where the salt came from.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. So, like, we set the two cars up the same, but that's not to say that, like, they handle exactly the same because, the fluid that went into the damper it might be different from one day to the next. I mean, you're going down to like these micro little things and like.
But then you think about it; it's a sum of its parts. So if you have a lot of parts,
tons.
By that time, all of those parts are together. There's a little bit of azimuth difference there. Yeah.
And then you have 4 different tires every single time you go on a track. So it could be different every single time. Yeah. So it's there's an exact science to this stuff, but it's all. It's not. Let me put this again. There's an exact science to this, but at the same time, there's a lot of voodoo, and a lot of it's mental. Like if you can get a driver to believe that they can do something, 9 times out of 10 they can do it. Yeah. It's like like with the TCR cars going flat through the S's of VIR. That it takes some balls, but you have to work up to that. You have to kind of tell them, coach them into doing that, or they might crash because they lift in that portion. And these cars especially, the second you lift, they rotate because they got all that weight in the front, nothing in the back. Okay. So, like, there's a lot of Jedi mind tricks when it comes to this. Like, you can go flat in the S's,
Well, that's the thing, too, is I heard a lot about when we were with Brumos, and Don was saying about Hurley, what made Hurley one of his best driving traits is that Hurley would drive anything. Like, the wheels could be falling off of it. He wouldn't complain about it. He would just adjust the way he drove the car. As compared to, not naming names outside of him, but like somebody else who may have driven the same car and was like, I can tell it's a little loose in the rear. Yeah. And it's like, okay, well, drive the damn thing. Like, make the driver adjustment, driver mod that thing. I mean, it's as dialed as it can be. And, meanwhile, Don would say, he's like, Turley would come. He's like, dude, you had a flat tire. He's like, I did? He's like, really? Right, he's running down. He doesn't, he's joking, obviously, but he's just saying, like, that's how dialed in he is as a driver, where he's just like, okay, I guess whatever the car is doing, I'm just going to make sure I make my adjustment.
Yeah, and that is a good thing to have. It's always, and that kind of goes back to like the, having 4 different drivers in the car type of thing, and them all kind of splitting different traits, because like I've had guys that maybe grew up with less money and maybe had driven like an F2000 car that their dad and them worked on, and the steering wheel on that car had like, as much play as like an old Ford Mustang. Yeah. And then you have guys that are like, have lived a privileged life and always been in the best equipment, and those guys are typically more detail oriented, clearly. Yeah. And those are good. Those guys are good feedback. Those are typically guys that give you really good feedback. And the guy that would be in his dad's F2000 car, and his dad would say to him, "Get on with it, son. Yeah. Well, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Let's just go drive it faster."
That's exactly what he was basically saying about Hurley. Is Hurley just never gave feedback because he would drive whatever they gave him. Yeah. So that's why they would always give him the wrecked car. They would never. He always had to.
Had that exactly.
He's always had to finish because he wouldn't complain about the car. He would just drive it.
And we had a driver like that when I was doing at Anderson. We had one Pro Mazda car that that's basically where I base this whole conversation off of. I mean, he had a steering rack that was destroyed. But the thing is like, I guess the mechanics on the car weren't really like grabbing one wheel, holding it, and not letting it move, and then turning the steering wheel. So like really, it just never really came up until we started watching in the data overlaid on the video, where you would see his hand move, and then this like little bit of time before the rack would move, and like, that's weird.
What the hell's going on there? Why is there a delay?
And he's like, I just thought that was normal. And the kid's winning races. You know, like absolutely, like could have won the season, but again, it came down to a financial thing, to be honest with you again. But he
just dealt with the car the way it was, right?
Yeah, he would win races with this clapped out car. And maybe the thing is, maybe they're so used to that little bit of like preload that you have to put onto this,
mark.
Yeah, I mean, that's his benchmark of a car. It might be that way, that he can drive that better. You know, maybe if you had a steering rack that was like brand new, perfect, and you turn it and it's too crisp, he would turn it in too early.
Exactly.
You know, because he's used to turning at this point, turning it in.
Yeah,
you know, but you got to adapt. You know, I mean, there's not very many perfect drivers out there. Yeah. Everybody has their little things, you know. Some guys are too emotional, some guys aren't emotional enough, and even on like the Porsche factory squad, you'll have guys that are freakishly intense and guys that will, you know, get out of the car and go like, you know, fall asleep on the golf cart. True stories. So these are all.
I've seen it. Yeah. I mean, you guys haven't seen it. It's like that endurance race. You have guys all different types of personalities. They're like, I guess I'm coming up in a little bit.
Yeah.
Like,
and then guys,
the guys like, like doing push-ups, like.
And then I think that has to come down to a lot of that. I feel like is a little bit of a financial thing as well. When a driver feels like they have their place, and when a driver has like a 3-year contract versus a 1-year contract,
I totally agree with that.
I think they treat it totally different.
You're absolutely right. When somebody's on the bubble and somebody has, you know, I think that's another reason, and that's another game we don't talk about enough too, where the contract with the drivers, you want them to feel at ease. Yeah. So you want them to be in a contract. You don't want to have to carry a guy a 1 year because he's always on edge.
Correct, yeah.
And he's driving on edge, so it reflects in the driving, and it's scary.
Yeah. And we, like, last year we have one driver that carried over on the TCR program. And, I mean, it was like the second that he had a contract for this year, a switch turned on, and he drove, or is still driving incredibly.
Yeah.
Like, not overdriving the car and finding that just kind of that limit is there without overdriving it.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have to drive like
a
for his job.
Confident comfortability essentially is like what I think a lot of guys call. He's like, he drives confidently, but he's comfortable.
Yeah. I mean, and it's showed so much. He's like one of the fastest guys in the TCR field, and I wouldn't have put him at that point last year at all. But now just him having the confidence of not having to worry about his job has been incredible. Just to make him a quicker driver.
Isn't that interesting, just the psychiatry behind the mental space that the driver's in?
Yeah, and
can affect how he's performing.
Oh, absolutely.
On the, like, you can go from winning to finishing last if you're on a contract bubble, if you're just being relaxed.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think like
nuts.
There's a lot of younger guys that are more in that relaxed feel, like in the IndyCar series and stuff like that right now. Like a Colton Herta shows up to the track, and like he's got other things he's into. Like he's got like a punk rock band.
Exactly.
You know, right? So like this guy, like racing is his passion, but it's not like if this goes away tomorrow, holy crap, what am I going to do?
Yeah, his life isn't over.
You know what I mean? Like that's where, like, if you put too much pressure on a younger driver and only have them do go-karting and they don't have any other, fallback.
That's a good point.
That's kind of a thing that is, the homeschooled, road to Indy kid that might be now socially awkward because he's only dealt with race engineers and other kids, really other kids and grown-ups. There always is kind of like a missing thing.
Up, his whole thing is just in the paddock. That's the only place that he ever grew up.
If they don't have a fallback, that can weigh a lot on you emotionally as well.
Yeah.
I mean, just knowing that.
Well, that pressure.
If this doesn't work out, what do I do?
Yeah.
I mean, you could be a driver coach, but some guys don't think of it that way. I mean, there's guys that have been, doing this forever and have made this fun. Like, we both know Lee.
Yeah,
Lee
of course.
Keen has went from like an incredibly accomplished driver and realized that, it's more fun to just drive and like have the car build be his passion as well. And on the other side, like,
driving on his accord instead of somebody else's accord.
Exactly. And like Andrew Davis, who was his, co-driver at Brumos, I mean, he's made his business be, as a driver coach. And if he races professionally, he's happy. But if he doesn't, I don't feel like he's going to have to go home and figure out how to pay the bills.
Yeah, exactly.
He's coaching with a Kelly Moss, or
exactly.
he's coaching with, some gentleman driver somewhere at all times. So there is a long-term business to this, and there is a long-term business plan, but some guys can't see that. And that's where I think like sports car racing is a little bit different from IndyCar racing, because IndyCar drivers don't want to be driver coaches. Yeah. I don't know any like IndyCar driver that ever wanted to be a driver coach, but there's a lot of guys that are, sports car guys, like James Vance, who drives for us. He loves coaching our team owner. Yeah. And it's like the most fun for him.
I'm like, as you said that, I'm trying to think in my mind if I have ever met, and you're right, I've never met anyone in my life that's been an Indy coach.
Yeah. I mean, there's mental coaches.
All in or nothing, huh?
There's, it's just, it's fun for some people.
Maybe a business opportunity for some ex Indy drivers, huh?
Maybe. Yeah, I mean, I think they some of them fall into it by financial necessity. Yeah. I see a lot of guys that were mid-pack IndyCar guys, especially, I won't point fingers, but a lot of like the guys that come over from like Brazil and things like that, you'll see in Miami a lot, and they'll be the guys that are coaching like billionaire number one, billionaire number two.
Right.
You want that name, and that guy might, be a fan of IndyCar, and that's why, holy crap, I can have this guy coaching me who was in IndyCar. So, I mean, but no, they don't want to do that. Yeah. I think sports car racers are guys that are into cars. I think open wheel racers are guys that are into racing. Yeah. And we're all into racing.
That's a good way to put it.
We're all into racing, but at the same time, like, I started off as a car guy, and not a race guy. Yeah. And it built into a racing, career. Yeah. So, like, I had the Dodge Viper and the Porsche 911 posters on my wall, and I got into this stuff only because we were building a car that ended up being a race car. And then just being like a competitive person in general, it made sense to, instead of like being a performance shop and only doing that, doing the racing stuff and being a performance shop. And we do a lot of car builds for people, like, and that's fun. It's still fun as long as
like
we're
that
still
S2000 you guys have out there that you're building for a guy.
I mean, every one of the cars we touch goes to the track. I would say that every one of them. So we don't have very many like.
Can I get an oil change, bro?
Yeah, I mean, but we do oil changes on cars that go to the track.
No, I know.
We don't have to like, that's the good part about us. Is like, we won't say like no to a guy who just wants to, get some service work done on his race car. And it's sometimes people come into the shop and they see a Daytona prototype next to a GT4 car, next to a TCR car, next to a GT3R, and they'll see all these race cars, and they don't feel comfortable bringing their car to us because they feel like, well, these guys don't want to waste their time on my stuff. And my guys want that type of stuff more so than the crazy race stuff, because we have our performance side of the shop and we have the race side of the shop, and they kind of go hand in hand, because you're getting the same crew members that are looking at the way that someone would put a car together that's going to go 180 miles an hour at Daytona to your track car that's going to go 160, 150 miles an hour at Daytona. So like, you're getting a crazy amount of attention to detail, and sometimes people don't see that like what they're getting here is a race team working on their track day car versus a street car shop working on their track day car.
That's a good point. I'm glad you said that, instead of like, oh, you guys are just some kind of like shop who it's like, no, it's the other way around.
Yeah. And I think we in the first couple years, it definitely turned away a lot of people because it looked like a race team that might have a street car there at some point. But now we've kind of based the business like in kind of like a 50-50 type of feel, like where, we have open wheel cars here. We've got, like you said, S2000 here. We have, lots of Porsche race cars. We've got, our Audi programs. Yeah. But we don't do, a lot of quantity. It's really about the quality that we put out, and we do, the shop is kind of capped at a specific amount of cars in it at one time. Now the mechanics won't believe me when I say that, but a track day guy, if he brings his car to us, I mean, there's no wondering, if the car is going to be done by their guy that's, in his first week of work, because we all have race experience here. Like every one of the guys that's in the shop is a member of the race team, either on the club level side or on the pro level side. So that's kind of the difference.
Thing too, because a lot of people, when they want to do a DE or even like a PCA or whatever track event or open day track event at Sebring, and you have a Spec Miata, or you have a lot of people have a challenge of, where do I take this to get maintained? And this is one of those places where it could get your car maintained. You could bring your Miata in here and make sure you get your suspension dialed in proper for the track, and you bring Chris some data and say, this is what's happening when I'm driving it, and you're like, well, let's try this.
Well, and here's the thing, like most track day guys need a reliable car but need work on their driving. So one of the guys used to be a driver here that's a mechanic, but in reality, we can put like, an AIM Solo in your car, something bare bones basic, and get the data off of your car, and you get the information and the debrief the same thing as you would getting it from like at the racetrack.
That's cool.
So like it's kind of an all-encompassing track day, not package, but like if you're a customer of ours and you say you get a corner balance alignment done, and we put racing brake fluid in your car and brake pads and stuff like that, the bare bones basic, you still have the ability to text me and say, hey, what exactly is happening at turn 17 when the car hits the bump and like my car gets kind of thrown over? Should I be taking that a little bit further over to the left? Should I be braking here? Should I be braking there? And it's just a little different, because not just the mechanical aspect of it, but like we treat each customer like we're going racing with them. Yeah. And that's why a lot of our customers end up racing.
That's huge.
A lot of our guys like will start doing club racing, and we've got a lot of guys that are doing IMSA that were track day guys with us. So that like if you look at a lot of the gentlemen
the progression starts to go up.
We look at everything, because I did the open wheel ladder stuff. The one good thing about that is that it's a feeder series type of feel, and you do your go-kart, F2000, Pro Mazda, Indy Lights, IndyCar. If you look at it differently and you do like a guy who does autocross, and then he does his DE, and then maybe he wants to have a spec Boxster, and then maybe he gets a GT3, and then maybe he goes and races to the GT3, and it's like it's a natural progression at a different scale. Where in the sports car stuff, there is a lot of those gentleman drivers, and then a lot of those gentleman drivers have sons and things like that. So we do a lot of that as well. Like we have a lot of like
father sons.
Yeah, we have a lot of father sons. Yeah. It's cool, because those are the guys that like, they'll like some dads might know me from like Dave Light Racing back then. Like they might have been driving at a competitive level back then, and their son was kind of getting into it, and we have 4 customers, which I think spread between them probably have like 7 cars. Wow. That are a father-son type of combination where they'll do like HSR or PCA events together. That's cool. Then, they might dabble into some pro stuff. They might, have already done pro stuff and are kind of over it, and just want to have fun and drive. So it's neat. There's just like, you get to see all these different people throughout like the lifespan of this business. We've had, customers here that are from day one that are still here, and we're into our 10th year now. Yeah. So as much as there's some turnaround because just people get out of it, most of the people that
I was gonna say probably fills up with somebody else too, like a new customer. And it's gonna be around for a while.
It's weird. Yeah, I mean, every time I stress about not having enough work, we always get like a huge influx of work or like a new customer or a new race program.
Yeah, I think that's normal though for a business owner. I think you're always going to be on that edge
stressed
of making sure, making sure that your guys are taken care of, your family's taken care of, that your customers are taken care of, and there's enough work coming in, and the lights and the building is still, and the business is still here. I think you'll always, no matter what, always have that. Yeah, you're always going to be on that knife's edge, like. Are we going to be okay this year? Everything's kind of slow, and then all of a sudden you're drinking from a fire hose, and you're like, "Oh my God, we have to turn away work."
Yeah, I mean it's gotten better for sure, but it has its waves. I mean, you could go like, 4 years of having amazing race programs, and then one day it all just goes away.
Yeah.
And luckily enough, I've remained friends with a lot of the teams that I did like subcontracted crew chiefing or engineering with, and I know like at the least if something happened I would be able to place all my guys, and that's a big thing for me is this is a family. I mean, nobody works on this type of stuff, race cars in general, if they're not passionate about it, because it's too difficult and too many long nights. And if you're just like, because the money's not there.
I was just about to say, you're not doing it because you're getting rich.
Yeah, I mean, the guys that, are family to me, so if for some reason my flyout guys say they don't have somewhere to go, I will make sure that they're working at, another race team, and it's a smooth transition. And I've done that in the past where I did like work with GMG, and we would just take all of our guys from the shop and like leave like say 2, performance guys when we're gone, take 5 guys and go and do a race.
Yeah.
And then we'd come back and do all of our stuff here. And then 5 of us would go out for the next race. So it's, you're always worrying about your family, your crew members' family, stuff like that. It's
a lot of responsibility, man.
Yeah, it is.
Sweet, man. Well, we talked for a while. I appreciate your time. Do you have anything you want to cover, Aaron, before we haul ass?
Not really. I was just gonna ask what the hardest track is for you to prep for.
Hardest track to prep for,
or what in past experience?
Can I give you 2 tracks?
2 tracks.
So since I do a lot of it's more so a car setup thing than anything. I really had a bad car at Watkins Glen 3 years ago, and I couldn't figure out why at the time, because it rained on the Thursday we got in, and those problems that we had would have never shown up in the wet, because the amount of force we're putting into the car is much less in the wet. So this was when I was running the Mustang. We ran a lot of bump rubber in the car, which is basically to stop the nose from diving down. I ran too much, and the second day we got there, we started working on normal race setup and qualifying, and it wasn't raining. The second he went out, the car had so much understeer in the first turn, which is a fast, banked right-hand turn, that it wouldn't even turn. I mean, you put all the wheel into it, and for the life of me, in how quick that those days went, it was like you would go practice, and then qualify, and then you race the next day, like we talked about earlier. I just really missed the ball on that one. It was horrible. So that's the first part of the story. So when something like that happens, you have about 365 days till you race there again. And I took the debrief sheets, and I kept it in a drawer on my bed, like next to my bed, and I would look at those. I would have to say maybe 3 times a month, and I would plan for Watkins Glen and plan for Watkins Glen and plan for Watkins Glen. And we had a really, really good car there. We qualified 3rd, and then we actually got taken out by a car that had a tire blowout and hit us while we were in the lead, which was unfortunate, but the car was great. You spend all that time just kind of like going through and reviewing data and video and all that. And then last year we had a bad, not a bad car at Lime Rock, but a bad race at Lime Rock, where we had it actually, these cars use the DSG gearbox.
Okay.
So like we're the only car that still runs like a factory style gearbox. Everything else is a sequential dog box, makes all the noise, bangs, does all the cool stuff. This is a straight up off the showroom floor DSG box.
Okay.
So we had the left side paddle, which is funny enough only held in by a little machine screw, fall off. Okay. So luckily you can shift it with the like regular street car shifter, like to shift on the side, or you can run it in automatic.
Okay.
So we basically ran the car kind of half in automatic, half in the shifter part, and then later in the race, our second driver for that race, he didn't put a cool suit on because he was macho man.
Okay.
And we had about 20 laps to go, and that's only like a 58, 57 second lap time at Lime Rock. So it's like boom, boom, boom. We had 20 laps to go, and he's like, how many more minutes? You know, how many more minutes? Like, he was like ready to die.
Yeah.
And then to like compound all the problems, there was because we had that shifter problem, and Lime Rock's only 58 second lap time, in our pits. Our pit time, like from in to out and doing the stop, is more than a lap. You would go down on a pit stop. So we kept the car out there for a super long time, and when everybody took tires because it went yellow, we didn't, because we thought it would put us like in the back on the lead lap, which it did. As we instantaneously got passed by the whole field on new tires.
I was gonna say, well,
with a driver
all hooked up.
with a driver who's about to friggin' die. And shifting with the hand shifter in it. So I definitely have a little bit of some redemption for Lime Rock. I think about that race a lot, and like I know it's like one of the farthest tracks away for us. Yeah. And I'm like, we got to go test there. I want to go test there. Like I don't care how much it costs. We're gonna find a way to go there.
We're going. Everybody's like, I
don't know. These cars are pretty good, so there's not like really a hardest track to prep for. Laguna has really horrible tire wear. I don't know if anybody in the race guys have talked to you about that, but like Laguna, I know
there's like chew through tires. Yeah,
there. Your tire might lose 3 seconds in 10 laps. Yeah. Like good grip to like no grip in 10 laps at that track. Yeah, they just haven't resurfaced it in forever.
You see, they're always, if you pay attention, they're always changing tires at that race.
We do it more so there. That's one of the only places where we would do like 4 tires possibly instead of 2 on those 2-hour races.
They only ran 8 laps. They're changing tires already. It's like,
it's pretty crazy. Like that track. It's kind of like Sebring, how Sebring has the bumps, and no one really wants to repave it because it's historic.
Yeah.
Laguna eats the living crap out of tires, and I don't think they'll repave it for a while.
Track characteristic, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Track characteristic of turning the wheel and nothing happening. It's a fun characteristic to have.
Exactly.
So...
crash and die. Wrong. That's a track characteristic.
I think if I lived in California and I was at that track every other weekend, it wouldn't be so hard.
Yeah,
it's a little bit geographic. We're at Sebring and Daytona, so usually at Sebring and Daytona we show up and we're pretty spot on to get the season going.
Yeah,
which is really good because usually we show well at Daytona. We got second there this year, and last year we got third. So just. Maybe if we do another year, we'll win it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how do you feel about them moving Sebring to November?
I'm totally fine with it.
Yeah, I think it's cool.
The weird ones are gonna be Lime Rock. I think it's October. Lime Rock is at, so it's gonna be cold.
Yeah,
I've only had one race where it snowed.
Wow.
That was Utah, and they snowed right before qualifying. So it was. It's actually it was a good thing it snowed because I was running a Corvette in World Challenge, and we had to prime the oil pump or prime the oil system every time we started the car. So you would turn the ignition off, start the car, crank it over, and it would build oil pressure. And then you'd start the car because you don't want to run the bearings dry. So we had an engine guy because just the program we had. It's not super typical, but we had an engine guy for that program, and he cranks it over, that's off, cranks over, and then he goes for the third crank over, and it melted the little solder because he was holding it for so long that takes the solenoid to the actual motor. So we're frantically changing a starter. Funny we had an engine guy, but we were super short staffed as far as like mechanics. So we jumped under the car and changed the starter out, and just by the time we know we're not going to make it, they called it because it started flurrying. I'm like, oh, thank you. Yeah, so that was a fun one.
Well, thanks for having us, man. Thanks for taking some time out of your busy day with us. We were excited to come see you and talk and see your shop, and
it was relaxing. It's nice to sometimes get to talk about the good old days and things to come.
Reflect on the stories. Yeah. Well, good luck with the upcoming season. I know we'll see you around the tracks. We'll probably have to work on our media pass if there won't be spectators allowed. So that's kind of how
you're gonna have to hold the lollipop.
Exactly.
You're essential.
That's fine.
Essential crew guys.
Exactly. I was like, hey, I'm here for free. I don't care. It's worth it. But thank you so much for coming on, and everybody at home. We'll see you guys on the next one.
See you.
Cool.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of PCAR Talk. Connect with us on Instagram at PCAR Talk or online at PCARTalk.com.